Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone. I am so thrilled to have Mary Elliott present today. She came in at the very last minute last week. We had an emergency with our presenter and Batiste, and Mary, the elder in residence at Nogdawindamin, accepted to come in to present, which was fabulous. I will have her speak in just a second. In the meantime, I would just like to have an opportunity to show you some of the resources that we have created with the Best Start Resource Center over the last couple of years, so you're familiar with them. And you will see a box at the bottom with files, and you can download any of the files that we're talking about. You can also go on our website, but I thought I'd make it easier by having them right there. So I will move on to the first slide. There are many services with the Best Start Resource Center. We have listservs, bulletin, we produce resources. It is probably through the listserv that you found out about this webinar. We produce a variety of resources. We do consultations, and we offer regional workshops, webinars, and we have our annual conference, which took place at the beginning of February, I should say last month now. Some of the resources we have this one, Indigenous Child Development Resources, Taking Care of Our Children. It's basically a facilitator guide that will enable you to do a parent workshop in child rearing for First Nations and communities. And it does go over the traditional parenting and the more modern parenting, contemporary parenting, I should say. And it shares information about ceremonies, guiding children. It is quite well laid out, and I just thought I would include a couple of pages of the table of content to give you an idea. It really has the whole background on how to create a workshop, how to facilitate, how to do a welcome, information on parenting, specific parenting challenges also that it goes over, a section, you know, how to wrap up nicely and give a proper end to such a meeting. And there are some appendices that have some great participant handouts. So I do encourage you to check it out if you get a chance. And then we also have another one, Growing Together with Our Children, that is more specifically on help for, whoops, sorry, here I'm, yeah, that is the one on parent-child attachment. That's it. And so facilitator workshop, so you can have all the information you need in order to do a parent-child attachment workshop in the context of First Nations. We pulled elements of those two workshops and made a facilitator guide how to plan any workshop for First Nations. So it has a lot of information that might be useful to you on that. And you can download again at the bottom in the files. We also created a report to create inclusion for First Nations into your programming. And it helps, it gives a bit of historical background as to why this might be necessary and how to accomplish that. So I do encourage you to check it out from our website or through the files that can be looked at below. And then we have a couple of recent resources that are more specifically on prenatal health, Planning for Change, which again is a ready-to-use workshop on the prevention of fetal alcohol syndrome disorders. So you can download that. And the one on the right is a guide that is more specifically for doing workshops for parenting teenage women into, or teenage men and women for parenting. So you'll find those hopefully useful to take a look at. And then, so you can download off this webinar during this webinar, but if you don't do it during the webinar or you want to encourage other people to do it, you can go on our website, www.beststart.org, go under resources, Indigenous, you see Indigenous prenatal health, Indigenous child development at the bottom. And you can sign up for our listservs. That's on the main page of our website. You can sign up for our listserv, and we have one that is specifically for people working with Aboriginal communities. So now I think we are ready to listen to Mary and her presentation on Elders Paving the Way Forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Ani, bonjour. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me, Louise?
Yes, I can certainly hear you. No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I am quite honored and privileged to be able to come on here to share with you a little bit about Elders Paving the Way Forward. Myself being a grandmother to 7 grandchildren, I've been really fortunate to raise my children with their traditions and culture. And as well, I've been looking at the same thing, teaching my grandchildren about their culture, their spirituality, and just knowing their purpose in life and helping them with their purpose in life. But anyway, I am indeed the elder in residence for Nogdawindamin Family and Community Services. I've been there now for just over a year. It's been very rewarding, very time-consuming, but it's been a good time-consuming. And just knowing, though, that our children are being grounded with their culture and traditions, which is a really, really blessed thing for Nogdawindamin. So I'm really honored and privileged to be a part of such a large group of staff, and just to help the children. Just recently, in fact, yesterday, it's a sad thing, but at the same time, it's a happy thing. These twin babies were apprehended just before Christmas, and anyhow, yesterday we ended up having a welcoming ceremony for them, as well as they received their spirit name and their colors, which is so beautiful. And I personally made their ribbon dresses for them so that they could look beautiful. Well, they are beautiful to begin with, but just to have something that was culturally oriented for them. So it was a really blessing, and I'm so grateful for working with such a wonderful team at Nogdawindamin to be able to really provide those ceremonies and ensure that the children know who they are. So I'm pretty thankful for that. Anyway, I'm here to share with you some of the things that elders do, I guess, within the family structure. And it hasn't really changed, I guess, not so much in terms of what it is today. I look at grandparenthood as it's a double standard living. So what we didn't do primarily with our own children, it's like we're doing it, we have a second chance or a second opportunity to be able to share more knowledge, more teachings, and more understanding about life. And so it gives me great honor to be able to fulfill that role within my own personal family and with the Nogdawindamin family. If you look on the screen there is a baby there in the moss bag. I personally made that little moss bag for my youngest granddaughter. She's 4 years old now, but I ended up making that for her because it's one of the important things that we do for our children. The Anishinaabe way of life brings a strong sense of identity, a strong, solid foundation, and of course a close relationship to the land, community, and our Creator. When we raise our children in this way, it's really, really beautiful to witness them going through the different stages of growth and development, their learning, their confidence, their empowerment, all those different things that help to ground the child. And it brings forth this sense of identity and that foundation, as I read here. And I really like that because it really does truly do that when they learn about who they are, that self-identity and that Anishinaabe way of life. Now, in the work that I do, not only just with Nogdawindamin, but other First Nation communities, I've really tried to teach the communities or the frontline workers about the importance of learning about our Anishinaabe way of life, because it's so important for our families. I can't emphasize that enough, because when we see, and I'm just going to give you an example, when I look at my own girls on how they've developed and how they've grown, and they too being moms, and you know, just the watching them and observing them, I am thankful that what I did for them was good. My children still use their spirit names or Anishinaabe names. We still call them by that. And you know, when we call them by their spirit names, we're actually empowering them and giving them that confidence to be who they are as Anishinaabe Kwe or Anishinaabe Nini, you know. This first picture that you see here, that's myself, and that's one of my daughters and my little granddaughter. Role modeling for our children and grandchildren is so important, you know, because as I mentioned, it provides a strong, solid foundation. And when we have that relationship with our children and grandchildren, and well, yes, we're going to have some drawbacks, and yes, we might have some, you know, disagreements and whatnot. But nevertheless, you know, if we're going to be there to support them, to talk with them, to teach them and show them, that relationship with the children and grandchildren will provide that strong, solid foundation. You know, it will give them that stability and security, and of course that sense of belonging. That little girl in there, you know, she's just so happy to see me when I go there. They live in Texas, so when I go there, she's just so excited, and I just went there for Christmas, and she just touched my hand. She couldn't believe Grandma was there visiting her, you know. So it was really, really such I don't know, I get all excited too when I go and see her. And she always calls me my grandma in Canada, and she has that close relationship with me, and I really want to build that. And I believe I've done that with all my grandchildren, to build that relationship with them. They're grounded in who they are as Anishinaabe. Like if you look at her, you know, she has her jingle dress on, and she has her Anishinaabe name. She knows her clan. Her father is of Navajo, so she's learning about her traditions on the Navajo side. So it's really, really, really beautiful to witness, no? Learning about her Anishinaabe values, principles, and beliefs. Not only is it from, say, me as her grandmother, but her mother teaches her those values too. And like any parents, you know, they're going to learn the importance of, you know, kindness, the importance of giving, the importance of respecting, you know, their elders or the older people, and not talking back when you know, they're being disciplined or something of that nature, you know, because children will mimic us. They fashion themselves after us, so we really need to be good, positive role models for them, you know, and that helps build that foundation for them, you know? And it also builds strong, healthy relationships with all of creation. So when, you know, for example, this little girl here, you know, she'll come out with me, or, you know, she'll come with me, and then when I need to put tobacco down, and all my grandchildren do that. They want to come and put tobacco down, or, you know, offer Thanksgiving or prayer, or pray for someone, you know, that might be sick, and they do that. And it's because they've witnessed that from their parents, and as well as from myself and their grandfather. You know? So it's really beautiful to watch when I when I see this little girl, every time I go to visit, how she is, and my goodness, I really can see her mother in her, though. Anyway, so we're trying to build strong, healthy relationships with parents, siblings, community, the earth in particular, because of the struggles and the hardships that our mother, the earth, is encountering right now. The water is not fit to drink. So, myself as a grandmother, I try to teach not only my own grandchildren, but everywhere I go, I try to speak on behalf of the water, because I truly believe I'm an advocate for that water, and I really want to try and make sure that people offer their tobacco and offer prayer to that source of life, which is the water. As well, grandparents' relationship with their grandchildren and children, you have a really good way of life with them, living with their cultural ways, and of course understanding their worldview is unique. I had taught at the college a number of years, and one of the things that I was teaching was of course Native culture, but I emphasized to the students at that time that if we wanted to look at our unique worldview, I learned from an elder one time, and he had said that Anishinaabe worldview, if you want to put it in mathematical terms, it's a 360-degree vision, meaning that we could see all around us, because of that holistic view. And it helps us because it's a gift that the Creator gave us when we left the Creator's side. And that's another story and another teaching, and I don't really we don't have enough time to do all that. But anyway, so moving along here, grandmother's role is to make her grandchild's moss bag and tikanogan. And if you can see here, there's a baby there in the moss bag, and then there's a picture of a tikanogan on your screen there. And when we look at that, it's supposed to be the grandmother's responsibility to make these. And when we make that, it gives them that sense of security, because they're wrapped up really snug, and they feel as if where they came from, their mother's womb, they feel that sense of security there. It teaches them discipline. Well, when you think about it, when they're in there, they're taught to observe and listen. So when they hear their mom's voice or their dad's voice, they're trained to recognize and acknowledge who their caregivers are while they're in that moss bag or tikanogan. And it's a reminder for them where they came from, which is their mother's womb. And they hear that first sound, which is their mother's heartbeat, and they hear that sound, and that's what's reminding them about who they are and where they came from. There was a story I heard just recently, and it's called The Spirit's Journey. And one of my coworkers shared this story about that. And it's a long story, but right at the very beginning he talks about that, like how the first sound that this unborn hears is the heartbeat, and it sounds like a drum. So that's what the baby hears. So when they come into this world, they sound their voice, and we know when they sound their voice. So some of them could be some soft, some of them can be very loud. That's that first voice that they sound, and they take their first breath. And if you ever witness a child being born, and you witness them take their first breath, it's just incredible, because as soon as they take that breath, that first breath, then they're part of this physical realm. Now, in our teachings too, they say that the newborn is walking in this physical realm as well as the spiritual realm. So we have to be very mindful of that. And that's why we really need to ensure that they're taken care of very well at the early stages, which brings me back to that moss bag and Tikanagan. So when they're in there, it provides them with that security. They're made to observe and listen, and also it reminds them of where they come from. If you ever look at a Tikanagan or a moss bag, right at the very bottom of the moss bag, I don't know if you can see my cursor going to the baby resting on the couch, but right at the very bottom there, it looks like a little hole. And believe it or not, if you're at a higher level of thought, the baby is remembering where they came from, and that's that connection to the spiritual world, which indeed, I guess maybe you could say that it's from the mother's womb, and that umbilical cord. Even though we may not see it, it's still connected to the baby. So when they're placed in this moss bag or that Tikanagan up here, then it's a reminder to them on where they came from. Later on in life, though, when they get older, when they're in this moss bag, you can put them in there for maybe about a year, 2 years, a year and a half, and they cry and crawl to go back in there. And when that happens, it's important to try and, make sure they go back in there. And because later on in life, it gives them that ability to think before action. In the puberty stage and teenage years, that's a very critical time for our youth, and they have a difficult time. And when our young people are placed in this moss bag or cradle board, it gives them that opportunity to really think about before they act on something. And because they're trained to discipline, they're trained to observe, they're trained to listen to what is their surrounding and what is happening. And that's the benefit of this moss bag and cradle board. My mom always shared this with me. She says that's the best babysitter a mother could have. And it's so true, because I've witnessed my own children, put their babies in there, and as soon as you wrap them up and snuggle them in there, right away they go to sleep. They know that it's a sign, it's a message for them that it's time for them to go for their nap. So babies who are kept in these have more patience than most babies or children who are not on there. And I have to say, as a grandmother, that is so true, because I know my own friends and community members who have not put their babies in there, and I've really witnessed how their children are in comparison to, say, like my grandchildren, being in there. Because I've seen my grandchildren just look and watch what is happening. It's really actually a really beautiful thing to see. So this moss bag and this Tikanagan or cradle board, it does do its work. And in our way, I'm so grateful and thankful that we were given these tools to help us raise our children. Coincidentally, what happened when I carried my baby in this cradle board, I had a cradle board, I got challenged by a health professional. And she said to me that, she was concerned about the baby's bone development on the shape of the bag here, And I said to her, I said, well, I'm not going to wake up my baby and undress her and take her out of that cradle board to show you. But, I said to her that you'd be surprised on what it looks like when she's in there. But I'm not going to take it apart. I was sharing that with her. And I told her that there's a certain way that we wrap our babies when they're in these the moss bag and the cradle board. When we wrap them, we separate their hands from their body, and the reason for doing that is because their hands is what's going to help develop their creativity, which brings them, when you look at their arms and their hands as they get older, they're going to be sewing or doing something that's creative. But what it does, when they're working with their hands, it allows their brain to develop, and they're looking at how they can make those things much better. That's just this, the moss bag and the cradle board. Anyhow, getting back to that health professional, she told me she was a nurse, and she was concerned about, my baby being in this cradle board. So we just made small talk, and then I asked her, I said, do you have any children? And she said yes. And I said, oh, that's nice, and I asked her how many, but I'm going back over 30 years ago now, so, and I don't remember how many children she said. And the question I asked her, I said, do you love your children? And she got really defensive, and she said to me, yes, I do, she said. And I said, lady, I love mine too, and there is no way that I would ever, ever harm my baby. And my baby is in this Tikanagan because it's going to benefit her later on in life. I said, I don't have time to talk to you and share with you the reasoning for it, but I will say this. She's going to be a successful young lady when that time comes. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if there's any men on here, but she's a recording artist in the States now. And she's well known for her dancing and for her singing. And so, I'm really proud of what she's accomplished. So, and it's all because of this. All because of the cradle board and the moss bag. So that's and they too have put their own babies in their cradle boards and moss bags. Especially this year, the moss bag. My late mom always, she made my grandson's first moss bag, and she sewed it all by hand. And she said, the reason I'm making this and doing it all by hand, she says, because it's helping me to think about the love that I want to put into that bag for my great-grandson, she said. So that's all that. So, we're pretty fortunate to have such a beautiful tool to help us in grounding our children. Now, I'm not a man, but I wanted to share a little bit of teachings regarding the grandfathers, and I think it's important just to share the basics about it. In the teachings, our men teach our grandsons and sons the sacredness of that fire and how that fire is so important to maintain that within the community or within the family. So the grandfathers teach on the fire and what that means for them as a man or as a helper. And it also teaches their role as a helper to creation, meaning that if they have to become responsible for looking after that fire. Just like us as women, it's our responsibility to look after the water, as I shared earlier. So the men, we have to have that balance, and it's a visual balance because we can look at the fire and we can also see the water. So when we see this, that picture there, that diagram, that picture of the fire, then it's the responsibility of the men, and that's the dads and the grandpas, to teach those young boys and young men about the fire and what that means. And then looking at their role as helper. Now, helper is what? Provider, taking care of the home, making sure their family's going to be all right. Like those are just some of the role as helper to their family and to creation. And teaching on how to provide for their families. I mentioned, look at this little guy here. He caught his first fish. It was his grandpa that took him out, and he was so proud of that. By the way, that's my great nephew. And his papa as being a positive role model, for his grandson. And there's a phase in the boy's life where they go what they call the puberty fast. And when they do this puberty fast, it's a certain ceremony that only the men are responsible for doing. But there, I remember when my grandson did that, I went home and I hurried up to go and talk to him. And one of the things I shared with him, I said, don't you ever, ever abuse a woman. Don't you abuse your sisters, your mother, anybody, any female. And I said, and that includes the earth. I said, don't destroy the earth. You need to put your tobacco down if you're going to take something from the earth. These were some things I had shared with him before he went in to do his puberty fast. And, when I look at him today, he's 24 years old. By no means he's not a perfect young man. We've had our struggles with him too, just like any families. But he's never, ever abused a woman. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful that he's never, ever done that. And, because I'm working in child welfare, I see a lot of these young men who've victimized their spouses. And some of the stories I've been hearing is just, oh my God, I cry sometimes to know that our men are hurting our mothers, and the children see this. So with our culture and traditions, we try to ensure that our men take their rightful place and really care for the female life, and knowing that their children are gifts from the Creator, and that they're responsible for caring for the earth. And I was just mentioning there the rites of passage, that young lad there, he went through that as well. Our young men really need to learn about their ceremonies. They need to really, as men, they need to put the boys through that, just so that they can be grounded, so that they know they can take their rightful place. They know the more meanings of the 7 grandfather teachings, which is that wisdom, knowledge, respect, love, truth, humility. Those are just some of the examples that they learn. And it's very important for them to continue doing that throughout their life. A few years ago, when my daughter got married to her Navajo Marine, I always tease him about that. But anyway, when they got married, the teaching that was given to them was just beautiful. And they had to walk around in a circle. And in that circle, there was gifts placed on that cedar circle as they walked around. With the man, he was picking up his bundle for his role as a man. And when the woman came, it was her, which was my daughter, she had to pick up her things. And when they sat down side by side, it was just amazing to witness, because you saw how much the men had as compared to what the woman's roles and responsibility is. Her hands were just full of gifts that she had to pick up in comparison to the man. And the man, because he's a provider and a hunter and all that, his bundle wasn't as huge as what the woman was. But you can see that. When you see those types of ceremonies, it's really passing on their responsibilities, their roles, and how they have to respect those roles and responsibilities. So when we put our boys through that then, and same with our girls do the puberty fast, then we're teaching them, because that now, when they become a man or they become a woman, in our language we say shkini work, meaning new young person. That there is telling them that now you are an adult. How you will be now for this first year, whether will reflect on you, on your whole life as a person, adult person. So that first year is very critical when a young girl goes into her menstrual cycle for the first year. The boys, it's the the voice change. So that's clear signs to us that they're becoming adults. So that rites of passage plays a really integral role for us in teaching our young boys to be young men and our girls to be strong young women. So that's so important, that particular teaching there, the rites of passage. I'm thankful that all my children and my older grandchildren have gone through their puberty fast or rites of passage. And I have a 12-year-old that I'm starting to get her ready. I'm one grandmother that really looks after a lot of these girls going through their rites of passage or their puberty fast. And again, that's for the girls, it's a whole year, and the boys, theirs finished when they get their first kill. And in that rites of passage, the girls are taught skills, like, for example, life-giving skills. They're taught to be mindful of how they walk and conduct and carry themselves. They're also taught about how to respect creation and love creation, because one day they're going to be giving birth to life, and it's how they see that role. So that's a really critical stage when they enter that puberty stage. So we try to tell them that first year, you're only for the girls, you're only sacrificing that 1 year out of your whole life for creation, or bemazoan, as we say in our language, life. That's so important for them. And the same thing with our sons and grandsons. They have to do that in order to become a healthy man or a healthy woman. So that's just some of this young boy. He did do that. He did go into his puberty fast. By the way, if you can see a good picture, he's the one that did all that work on his outfit, his regalia. He's a very gifted young man, and we're also proud of him because of what he does. And his parents, they've really been teaching them about living off the land and how to tan hides and skin animals and take them out into the bush, they live out there. It's just beautiful on how they are with this young lad. And he's such a humble young man. He's 19 years old now. So I'm really proud of him. And he calls me auntie, even though I'm probably a little bit older than that, But I don't know if I can go back here. Okay, I just want to go back to before we here. When I was sharing with you a little bit about this here, and I was sharing with you about the importance of them learning this. This here is when they start. They start learning about their traditions and their cultures from here. And I, as a grandmother, I've made my granddaughters this little moss bag for them to play with, And then as they got older, I ended up making more, like if you notice the picture previously, I helped my youngest daughter there to be, a granddaughter to jingle dress dance. And I made her outfit. Her mom can sew, but I always shared with my girls, I would really like to make their very first outfit, and I said, and after that you can make any of their dresses if you want. So, and that's what I did, because I understood and appreciate what my grandchildren are doing, and I would like to be play an important role to them. And even if it's just making a jingle dress or making this moss bag, they hold on to those things. My son-in-law, when I made my granddaughter her play moss bag, he said, I don't even know if we should let her play with this. He said, it's so beautiful, because it's all hand sewn and it's, like everything on it is so precious and, and you want to let her play with this? I said, yeah. My son-in-law, just love him. But he, so it's really trying to help them live that good life, letting them to be able to be who they are now, and to be proud of that. And I like the idea that these ceremonies that we do for them is to really teach the child well. Now, over here in this picture over here, you can see her papa taking a gift from his little granddaughter. This is what we call the walking out ceremony. And this little girl, this was the very first time she placed her feet on the ground. And she's made to walk around in a circle. And as the second time she goes around, she starts giving out her food. And when she gives out her food, she's playing out her role, that what she's going to be doing when she becomes a woman. She's going to be feeding the people or feeding her family. That's her responsibility. And so by her giving her papa food, that's showing, what she's going to be doing. And her papa there, she just loves her papa, and it was so cute witnessing this ceremony because she, how she was. She knew what to do. Like as she was walking around, she knew what to do. Once her mom told her, to give her some food or strawberries to the people, and then she went all the way around. And I thought, my goodness, that's such a beautiful ceremony. And ladies and gentlemen, we try to do that with every stage in their life. The very first part, the very first 7 years of a child's growth and development is very critical. And so when these babies come into the world, we try to show to our Creator that we will take care of them. And in our culture, that's what we're trying to do. We will care for them. So that first one, as I shared with you, the putting them into the moss bag. The second thing is that we try to find their spirit names. They're Anishinaabe. Mine is, for example, 4 winds. In my language, we say Niwanoden, and that means 4 winds. So, and they already come into this world with a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. So that sense of belonging is that clan family. If you notice right at the beginning of my PowerPoint, I had Mary Elliott, grandmother, Turtle clan. My father, we follow it's a patrilineal descent, and so I follow my father's clan, which is Turtle. And so already when I came into this world, this physical realm, I already belonged to a family, which is that Turtle family. And everywhere I go across what we call Turtle Island, and if I meet someone that belongs to that family, then that's my relative. And in our customs and traditions, we are not allowed to marry anyone in that same clan. So well, I'm not married anymore, but my girl's father was Moose clan. So my daughters are Moose clan. And so my grandson, he's Eagle clan because his dad belonged is an Eagle clan. So we're not allowed to intermarry. It's a form of incest. That's how it was looked upon. So we had pretty strict teachings, pretty strict, very strict, because we're always thinking about the children. We're always focusing on them because they are the gifts that were given to us. So my role as a grandmother I want to make sure that my daughters know that they have these beautiful gifts given to them. And if you look at this picture down here, this is my granddaughter, and I'm preparing her for her puberty fast. And she comes over, and we have some really good times together, and I just love her, and I'm really looking forward to that time when she starts, Mama, up here, this is my little Navajo Ojibwe, Quazes. But this is her Chimama, we say. Chimama, it means great-grandmother. So this is her great-grandmother, on her Navajo side, And she just, she doesn't speak a word of English. And so every time she sees her, she always spoke the Navajo language. My son-in-law speaks the Navajo language as well, and he's been teaching her. She's 4 years old now, but teaching her some of the Navajo words and sentences. So I'm really thankful that that's happening there. So when we look at this here, I want to leave time for questions. Louise, are you there?
Yes, yeah, I'm still there, and yeah, I was thinking we've got about 10 minutes left. I really, really appreciate the sharing you did of your experience as an elder, as a grandparent, and roles of grandmothers, grandfathers. But I would like to leave a little bit of time for questions. Should we open up the chat line? It won't. If people have questions, they will have to type them into the chat line. Is this a good time, Mary, to open that up?
Well, I can read it, and then
yeah, I'm going to just maybe clear what we have in there, and if anybody has a question, they can type them in the box at the bottom, and Mary can answer them. I don't know, Mary, if you can put your camera on so people can actually see you on the top right of your screen, and we'll wait for the questions to come in. While the questions are coming in, I also want to bring up something. You mentioned, the importance of the role modeling in the disciplining of children, and we do have a resource specifically on that, not specific to First Nations, but our recent campaign on positive discipline is really along that line, and you can see all the videos on our website called childrenseechildrenlearn.ca, and there are videos for, what is discipline if you have a 1-year-old, if you have a 2-year-old, if you have a 3-year-old, and a 4 and 5-year-old. So I do encourage you to check that out. So we do have a question here. Our participants of parenting program like to receive a certificate of completion. Is it available? We can make it available. Please send us an email if you need a certificate of completion. You can send it to me after the webinar, and we will make sure we send you that. I see another question getting typed. If other people have questions, you're welcome to pose them to Mary, who is so grateful. I'm so grateful that you were able to share all your learnings and with a very personal touch also. Any other questions? Yep, go ahead.
I know while the questions are coming through, what I've been finding out since working in child welfare, how much of our people yet do not know about our culture, about our way of life, and that's exactly what it is. It's a way of life. It's not a religion. It's not looked upon as that. It's just a way of life, and that our grandparents play a really important role to learning about our customs and traditions. So.
I see a good question there from Sarah. She mentions many of the families that she works with are separated from their grandparents or elders from their traditional community. How would you suggest families having the type of teaching you give to your family when they're disconnected geographically?
This is where you would really rely on the elders in your area. I would seek them out. Find out who they are, make some kind of contact, whether it's a friendship center or whether, anything of that resource and ask them if there's anyone there that can provide teachings or storytelling or, craft making or anything of that nature. And it's interesting because cultural resources is all over now. I mean, there's a lot of elders that are taking on their responsibility and their role to share, to share their knowledge. And they're at the point now, and I look at it myself too, that I'm at the point where I'm turning around and looking back at my life. And I want to leave some good tracks for those ones coming behind me. So I'm willing to share. I'm willing to give, whatever it is that I need to give to those young ones coming behind me, whether it's parents, youth, coming in to do welcoming ceremonies and whatnot for our young people. I'm willing to do that. And I know there's a lot of other elders out there that are more than willing to do that,
Yeah, I was actually surprised of your title, Mary, when I connected with you, Elder in Residence, which it would be nice to know or if there are other people taking on that role in other communities also, but I thought that was a wonderful title. I see another question. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And Jenny? You're asking how long it takes to make one of these? Well, the beadwork takes much longer. I can do applique on the bag if I need to. If you look on the baby's moss bag that was on the couch where she was resting, that's all applique. But the one when I started the PowerPoint, that's all beaded. It takes much longer to do the beadwork. I can't even put a time frame on it. If I was to work on it steady, I'm going to say roughly, if it was steady, like say 8:30 to 4:30, no, just kidding. Maybe, I would say probably about 6 weeks maybe. I'm just guessing. But, because
wow.
I just took my time at it, so,
Well, that's a lot of time. Now, we have a couple more minutes. I'll just see if there are any more questions. Okay, the gender roles in the Indigenous communities. And Robert is asking about what are the roles of the two-spirited individuals. I think there could be a whole webinar on this. But
yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for bringing that out, Robert. It's something that's been coming more out now into the Native communities. And I guess at one time, I remember my late mother, she said to me, she says, the more that they come out, the more that the earth rumble. And I remember sharing that one time, and I guess some of the two-spirited people got offended by that. And it wasn't my intent to offend them. My mother was just basically sharing with me that, these, when they come out, it's not to cause problems within the community, but it's also it's basically to acknowledge and recognize them for the gifts that they have. Now, we have, for example, like a two-spirited AC family, we call them AC families, and they're taking care of children. And to me, as long as those children are taken care of in a good, healthy way, I believe, too, that there are going to be some people who might be offended with the two-spirited individuals. But I think myself personally, this is just my personal views, that what would happen if my grandson became that? Like, am I going to disown him? No, I don't think so. So I look at it from that angle. But again, there's a lot that needs to be taught about that two-spirited people. I remember one elder saying, we never seen them. Why? They lived like bachelors or, I forget how you call women that didn't marry, and that's how they used to live by themselves. So we never knew they existed, but they were there. They were always there. It's just now that they're coming more out into the forefront, and I don't have a problem with that myself personally, but I don't know if I answered your question, Robert. I might have took the long way around there.
I see that it is 2 o'clock now. I really appreciate the questions that we've had, and we will make this recording available after, and I will be sending an evaluation link also to all the participants. I really, really want to thank Mary for stepping in at last minute to deliver this webinar, and thank all the participants for their understanding of little technical issues and following so attentively. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Chimigwech, as we say in my language, which means a big thank you. And Louise, thank you for calling me at the last minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll send you an email.